All right, Psychology 201. Here's part two of this social psychology, and we're beginning at aggression. And so aggression is going to begin on page 6 of your slides. And I'm trying to get all this to you in one big shebang this first of this week, so you'll have enough time to listen to the video, to take notes in class, to ask questions in class, so that next week maybe we can just review some of the final exam questions and get you ready for that. All right, so this is a short video, and we're going to start with aggression. Explain how psychology's definition of aggression differs from everyday usage, and identify the biological factors that make us more prone to hurt one another. All right, in psychology, aggression is any physical or verbal behavior intended to hurt or destroy. This definition of aggression has a more precise meaning than it does in everyday usage, where an assertive salesperson or dentist who make us wince with pain may be described as aggressive. On the other hand, psychology's definition recognizes a verbal assaultive person or one who spreads a vicious rumor as aggressive. So biological influences on aggression operate at the genetic, neural, and biochemical levels. Animals have been bred for aggressiveness, and twin studies suggest that genes also influence human aggression. One genetic marker is the Y chromosome. Another is the monoamine oxidase A, the MAOA gene, which helps us break down neurotransmitters such as dopamine and serotonin. People who have a low MAOA gene expression tend to behave aggressively when provoked. Animal and human brains have neural systems that, when stimulated, inhibit or produce aggression. Animals and human brains have neural systems that, when stimulated, either inhibit or produce aggression. For example, studies of violent criminals have revealed diminished activity in the frontal lobe, that executive function, and that ability to make decisions or weigh out the outcomes of certain decisions has been altered, which play an important role in controlling impulses. Finally, studies of the effects of hormones, testosterone, alcohol, and other substances in the blood show that biochemical influences attribute to aggression. Outline psychological and social cultural factors that may trigger aggression. So the frustration aggression principle states that the blocking of an attempt to reach some goal creates anger, which can generate aggression. Frustration and aggression arise less from deprivation than from the gap between reality and expectations. Like frustration, other adverse stimuli such as physical pain, personal insults, foul odors, cigarette smokes, crowding, and hot temperatures can also evoke hostility. Our reactions are more likely to be aggressive in nature when experience has taught us that aggressive pays. If there's some reward for being aggressive, if there's some reward for being loud and rude or mean, and there's some payoff, I get my goal, then I repeat that behavior. Different cultures influence and evoke different tendencies toward violence. For example, crime rates are higher in countries marked by a great disparity between rich and poor. Some influence also appears in high violence rates among cultures and families that experience minimal father care. People learn aggression by observing models who act aggressively. For example, in the family or in the media, watching violence or sexual aggression on TV or in the film. When interviewed, Canadian and U.S. sex offenders report a greater than usual appetite for sexual explicit and sexual violent material, typically labeled pornography. Laboratory experiments reveal that repeatedly watching on-screen violence makes sexual aggression seem less serious. They become jaded to it. Extramarital sex less troubling, and a woman's friendliness more sexual. Media depictions of violence also trigger aggression by providing social scripts. Mental tapes for how to act provided by our culture. Playing violent video games can heighten aggressive behavior by providing social scripts and opportunities to observe model aggression. Studies have found that playing violent video games increases aggressive thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Young adolescents who play a lot of violent video games, I've seen people play video games violently too, see the world as more of a hostile place, and they get into more arguments and more fights, and they get worse grades. The studies also disconfirm the catharsis hypothesis, the idea that we feel better if we vent our emotions. Pro-social relationships, attraction. Explain why we befriend or fall in love with some people but not with others. 3 factors are known to influence our liking for one another. Geographical proximity. Some people can't do the long distance relationship thing. Geographical proximity is conducive to attraction, partly because of the mere exposure effect. Repeated exposure to novel stimuli enhances liking of them. Physical attractiveness influences social opportunities and the way one is perceived. We view attractive people as healthier, happier, more sensitive, more successful. As acquaintanceship moves towards friendship, similarity of attitudes and interests greatly increases liking. The factors that foster attraction are explained by a reward theory of attraction. We like those whose behavior is rewarding to us, and we will continue relationships that offer more reward than cost. Describe how romantic love typically changes our time as time passes. We can view passionate love as an aroused state that we cognitively label as, oh, I love her, I love him. The strong affection of passionate love, which often emerges as a relationship matures, is enhanced by equity, a condition in which both parties receive in promotion to what they give. Another vital ingredient of loving relationship is mutual self-disclosure, in which partners reveal to each other intimate details about themselves. A third key to enduring love is positive support. All right, and altruism. Identify the times when people are most and least likely to help. Altruism is unselfish regard for the welfare of others, risking one's life to save victims of genocide with no expectation of personal reward in return. The bystander effect, we talked a little bit about that earlier, is the tendency for any given bystander to an emergency to be less likely to give aid if the bystanders are present. Research on the bystander effect indicates that to decide to help, one must notice the event, interpret it as an emergency, or assume responsibility for helping. Discuss how social exchange theory and social norms explain helping behavior. Now, social exchange theory proposes that underlying all behavior, including helping, is a desire to maximize our benefits, which may include our own good feelings, and minimize our costs. For example, we will donate blood if we anticipate that the rewards, social approval, good feelings for doing so exceed the cost. Time, discomfort. Some norms may also prescribe altruistic behavior. The reciprocity norm is the expectation that people will help, not hurt those who have helped them. The social responsibility norm is the expectation that people will help those who are dependent on them. Peacemaking. Explain how social traps and mirror images perceptions fuel social conflict. A conflict is a perceived incompatibility of action, goals, and ideas. A conflict is a perceived incompatibility of action, goals, and ideas. Social traps are situations in which conflicting parties may become caught in mutually destructive behaviors as they pursue their own end goals, thus creating an outcome that no one wants. No one wins. It's a lose-lose here. Helping people to agree on regulations, to communicate better, and to be more aware of responsibilities toward others foster cooperation. The spiral of conflict also feeds into the fed. Okay, let me read that again. The spiral of conflict also feeds and is fed by distorted mirror image perception, in which each party views itself as moral and the other as unworthy and evil intentioned. Perceptions such as these can become self-fulfilling prophecies. Discuss how we can transform feelings of prejudice, aggression, and conflict into attitudes that promote peace. Research suggests that non-competitive contact between parties of equal status may help reduce conflict. Yeah, non-competitive contact. That we're not pitting one another against each other, that we're both coming together with equal status and with the agreement that we're going to work together, that there's nobody that's going to win-lose situation. It's a win-win situation. We both come together in a non-competitive atmosphere. More important, the discovery of superordinate or shared goals that require cooperation can turn enemies into friends. Communication, sometimes through a third-party mediator, also promotes mutual understanding. Finally, the GRIT, graduated and reciprocated initiatives and tension reduction strategy, suggests that reciprocated conciliatory gestures bring peace. All right, let's look at your slides. The biology of aggression. Biology influences aggression at 3 levels: genetic influences, neural influences, biochemical influences. Genetic influences is evidence formed from animal studies that twin studies, the genetic Y and the MAOA gene, influences our behaviors, influences our ability to be less impulsive and regulate aggressive behaviors. Neural influence. Neural systems facilitate or inhibit aggression when provoked. Aggression more likely to occur when the frontal lobe is damaged. When people who have had brain damage, or for some reason their frontal lobe and their executive functioning, their ability to make decisions and to balance and decipher, or to look at a situation and to work it out or to walk it through to find out what the outcome is, somehow has been impaired or more apt to respond aggressively. Biochemical influences, when there's not enough testosterone or there's not enough dopamine or serotonin being released in the body, they may react more aggressively. Psychological and social cultural factors in aggression. Adversive events, when you're dealing with frustration or aggressive events, frustration creates anger and can spark aggression. Other anger triggers, hot temperatures, physical pain, personal insults, foul odors, all those things may cause someone to feel angry on the inside, may stimulate the amygdala to respond with an aggressive presentation. Psychological and social culture factors in aggression. Media portrays violence. You can watch violence on TV. You can experience violent video games, and it shifts how I view the world and interact in the world, because my brain is being washed and taught inadvertently to behave in a certain way. Do violent video games teach social scripts of violence? And so they say nearly 400 studies of 130,000 people suggest, that's a lot of people, suggest video games can prime aggressive thoughts, decrease empathy, and increase aggression. Some researchers dispute this finding and note other factors: depression, family violence, and peer influences aggression. Aggressive behavior, we talked about the social cultural influences. We talked about the de-individuation, when people feel like they're less than a person, or they've been made fun of, or they have challenging environmental factors that cause them to be poor or in less social environments. Biological influences, genetic influences, psychological influences also influences aggressive behavior. Pro-social reflections or relations, psychology of attraction, the proximity Physical attractiveness, similarity of attitudes and interests may encourage people to relate or be favorable to one another. What do we mean by attractive? And it has three different pictures here, cultural pictures and what we deem as socially acceptable. The answer varies by culture and over time. So that's on page 7 of your slides. Pro-social relations, modern matchmaking, speed dating, romantic love. We talked about that. Altruism, compassionate love, the bystander effect, the assumption that all of these people are watching, somebody else will do it. I don't want to take that responsibility, and I don't even deem this as an emergency. For example, someone may be watching a woman and a man in an altercation and just assume that this is a relational altercation and walk away and dismiss it as they're having relational problems and never see this as a environment where the woman is being assaulted and she does not know this man. And they may not call any type of authority or make a report because they assumed that this is not serious. The norm of helping, peacemaking, conflict, and how we engage conflict and how we perceive conflict and the peacemaker. We talked a little bit about that. Let's maybe look at one of our fact and falsehood questions here. And let's see if we can do some of this learning effect. All right. The higher the morale of harmony of a social group, the more likely are its members to make good decisions. This is question number 7. The higher the morale and harmony of a social group, the more likely are its members to make good decisions. Let's see. True or false? What do you think? That's going to be false. Just because they have a high morale and in harmony doesn't mean that they're going to make good or right decisions. Researchers project that other things being equal, global warming of 4 degrees Fahrenheit or 2 degrees centigrade will induce tens of thousands of additional assaults and murders in the United States alone. Thus, the environmental influences affect our ability to manage aggression. So question 8, what do you think? True, environmental influences does affect our ability to manage our impulses or manage how we feel. From research on liking and loving, it is clear that opposites do attract. Question 9. Do you think opposites attract? The answer here looks like it is false. From research on liking and loving, it is clear that opposites do attract, and this is false. We are less likely to offer help to a stranger if other bystanders are present. We've talked about that. Question 10. True. All right, so some of our fact and falsehoods. This is chapter 13 of your social psychology. I believe this week you do have a weekly discussion post, and it looks like that question is, and you may already have done research on this, so it should make it pretty easy for you. Discuss your understanding of psychological disorders. Are we on unit 13? We're on unit 14, so let's see. Unit 14, chapter 13. So it should be describe the rationale for preventing mental health programs and why it is important to develop resiliency. So this is your discussion question for unit 14. And today is Monday, November the 26th, and I've just went over chapter 1 and chapter 2 of your chapter 13 discussion, social psychology. And by Friday, we should be done with chapter 16 of this chapter. 13 and 16 is what we're discussing this week. And we will go from there. So God bless you, and I'll see you later.